Welcome to The Finder of Lost Things, exploring your superpowers of trust, healing and transformation with me, Hannah Belton. My brother, Christian, disappeared in Mali, Africa in 2003. He disappeared without a trace. We lost his story, we didn't have closure, we lost so much. I was fighting and searching to find Christian when actually I just needed to sit in stillness and attract him in. I was so resistant to doing this, but I had to surrender. It's a process of trusting and finding the lost pieces and integrating them. This podcast will uncover the process that Christian and I went on to find the lost things, him, and to find the parts of me that were missing.
And we were destined from the start to tell our story into the dark, for we were born to a great white shark.
Hello, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world listening. Do come sit round in a circle. So this week is just me, and I start planning the show on the Wednesday before I have the show, and this week is all about receiving. So receiving was the word I kept getting again and again and again when I was asking what we're going to be talking about. So receiving, and I do feel this show holds two purposes. One, it's kind of a pep talk for me, for myself and what's coming towards me. And also I do feel that this is going to be a very important episode for people who are in some kind of conflict, some kind of battle, probably with themselves. And like I was when I was deep in grief and didn't want to hear the truths, didn't want to be receiving anything that was coming my way. And we'll talk about that a lot more during this episode, but I really do feel this is going to be an important episode for a lot of people listening. There's another reason for this episode now. So if you've been following along with the podcast, we are coming towards the end of the growing season in terms of the Wheel of the Year, and we are just about to move into the flowering season. So whatever plans, whatever thoughts that you've been thinking for the last month or so, they are going to start flowering and coming into fruition. I just want to give you the best possible chance for hitting the flowering time in the best form that you can be in, and open to all the information, all the love, all the guidance, all the support that you can receive at this time. Because if you can open to all of that, all that support that's around you, that's a lot of it's going to be unseen, but if you can open to that, you can really be receiving and then giving out and flowering. So I can't lie, the first card that I pulled out, I'm going to show it to you, for this show it was actually reversed. It's the Seven of Swords. Now, I have to be honest, the first time I had the Seven of Swords in when I was helping a client, when I was supporting, it was mental health issues. And we've just, in the UK, last week was our mental health awareness week. And I know in America, I've just sort of seen on my social media, it is actually going to be, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. So you've got a whole month ahead of you. So it kind of seems to be the right time to be talking about this. So why might mental health, or how does that link into receiving? Okay, so I'm just putting myself back into that time when my mental health was not good. I'd been searching for Christian for about 6 months just through social media searching, because any physical search for him hadn't worked, and he'd been missing at that point for over 12 years, and no physical searches had worked for him. And then I started to receive information, and I was very sure that I had to restart the search again. This was 12 years later, but it had to be on social media because there was no other way of getting hold of him. So 6 months I threw myself into a social media search, followed all the red herrings that I could, followed, just was desperate, searching, fighting to find Christian, and it all ended in brick walls, failure. And yeah, so my mental health was, a lot of it was embarrassment that I'd put myself out there so openly and so freely, and was literally emotional, like gazumping all over the place to try and get Christian. So yeah, there was part of that sort of embarrassment of how I'd been so open and vulnerable. And then I was also angry that I still felt Christian was out there and he just wasn't coming forward, and I just couldn't do anything to draw him in. Yeah, so there was anger there, embarrassment, and also this sort of, what on earth am I going to do now? Like, that was my last chance to get Christian, to find him. There was no other options on the table that I could see. So it was a really tough time, and it was, my whole life was condensed into finding Christian. Just like there was this, it was almost like there was just one relationship in my world, despite the fact that I've got, 2 children, husband, but I was just so obsessed with finding him. And I think this is probably anyone who's recently gone through a grief or something that you become obsessed with almost. That is the only relationship that is important to you. And yeah, so I was not in a good way. I was not in a good way. I never went to the doctors or anything like that. I was just had to, and the thing is that actually people on the outside probably wouldn't have noticed. I was very good at not showing my emotions. I wore my heart on my sleeve when it concerned Christian, but for anything else I really didn't during that time, because it was too painful. I couldn't allow my emotions out anymore than to do with Christian. And it wasn't a healthy letting out of emotions. It was, like I sort of said, it was a bleh, kind of emotions everywhere, scattered. And I had clarity on what I wanted to do, which was find Christian. But my intention wasn't pure, and I only found that out a lot later on. But a lot of my intention for finding Christian at that time was, obviously it was to find him and to get our family back together again. But there was also an element of, I've been able to find him when nobody else has been able to find him. Almost like the love that I have for my brother has trumped everybody else's attempts to get him, to find him. It was almost like I wanted to be the one to find him and to prove in some way that my love for him was greater than others' love for him, if that makes sense. I think that's coming out right. So it wasn't the purest intentions of finding him. Whereas as time went on, my intentions were incredibly pure about finding him, and that's when I did actually find him. So there was a lot of mess around that social media search for him, and I mean, I haven't removed any of it from the internet. It's all at Facebook. Search for Chris Felton. You can go through and look at all the posts I did and all the appeals and like everything that what I was giving out. And yeah, it was why have I kept it? I'm just being asked, like, why have I kept it and not removed it? All because I think it's important for people to see where I was at that time, and to show that we're not all, we're all really very similar in what we want and what we desire. We all want love, we all want support, we want community, we want guidance, and yeah, I suppose I'm just going to leave it there. And all the films that I've done, I'm just going to keep them there, because it just shows you, I suppose, where you can come from to where I am now, and where I support and a kind of a way shower for other people through loss and grief. But it shows it's raw, it's me, it's how I was, and it will give people a belief that anything's possible. To come from that place of the deepest and the like a tragic missing persons case, to where we are today. That kind of feels like I had to draw a line under that. So I guess at that point, and the reason why my mental health was so shot to pieces, apart from the fact that I had a missing brother and I felt I was out of control. Life was out of my control and everything was working against me to be able to find him. It was almost, there was an element also of Christian at that point, like an element of betrayal, in a way that we had been so close as children, and that when I'd done all I could, like I'd done everything to try and get him back, and it was almost like I must point out, at this point we did think Christian was still alive. I was very sure he was still alive, so it really did feel like a sort of betrayal that he hadn't come forward after I'd given everything. And there's also this element of, I remember thinking, am I sort of self-worth, I guess, am I not worthy of his love? Am I, is there something wrong with me that he can't give his love to me? So there were all these sort of thoughts about, am I worthy of receiving his love? Am I worthy of victory, I suppose? When everyone was thinking, there's no way Hannah's going to be able to find Christian, we hope she will, but there's really no way she's going to find him after 12 years. And I guess a part of that was just I wasn't worthy of that sort of victory of being able to say to everyone, I told you so. So that's and then when I've also used this card has also come up with other people, there's been an element of deception. So people not telling the truth about what they're really feeling, and not being open with people around you, and also with yourself, like not being open to what you're really feeling, and to maybe what your body is trying to tell you, what your intuition is trying to tell you. So there's a lot of sort of deception, a lot of cunning sort of behavior that's going on, and it's all very cloudy. So I don't know if that's resonating with anybody at the moment, but that was how I was feeling. That's the best way I can really describe when I was at my lowest. You know, I wasn't thinking clearly. I had so much going on in my head that was fear, that wasn't real. It wasn't true. You know, Christian will be like, he loves me, I love him. It was so simple, really, in the end, how to find him. It really was. But when everything seems to be out of control and chaotic, and you're only focusing on like getting to like you're doing all the time without actually stopping and listening to yourself and actually finding some clarity and some space. Like, I'm being shown this like a clear, like if you're in a wood and there's a clearing in a wood, like I never went to find that clearing in the wood and sit in the middle of the wood and just take some time to breathe and to just relax and drop my shoulders. You know, we were always fighting to find him, so to find Christian, so it was always go, and if there was a brick wall, it'd be like, shit, now what do I do? I'm just going to try a different way. So it was just all rush and hitting brick walls all the time, and I wasn't receiving what I should have been receiving. Okay, so that's kind of the Seven of Swords out of the way, and there needs to be no more said on that, because what I want to move into now is what I did start to receive once I had enough, and actually made a pact with myself, almost, that I knew that I needed help. I knew I needed support. I knew I couldn't do this on my own any longer. And I actually surrendered. I did this actually with my son. I actually made a little, I didn't actually know what I was doing. I have to make this clear. It all came from within somewhere. I'd made the decision. That was it. No more. I had to sort myself out because I had a family. And it was important that I sorted myself out for them and for myself, because I could not carry on the way I was carrying on. And I had a photo of Christian. I had a candle. I'm just trying to think what else I had. I had his belt. I had an object that Christian owned, which was his belt. And I had a massive crystal that I put down, and I just put them in just arranged them on the floor. And I sat with my son, and we did a little ritual, which was essentially sending Christian all my love, or our love, and speaking the intention that I have done all that I can do at this point. There is nothing else I can do to find Christian. I am going to hand over the finding of Christian to the universe. And I don't know how you're going to find him. We've all tried and couldn't find him. But I'm going to hand this all over to a higher power than myself, because I've tried and failed. And we lit the candle, and there was obviously more to it than that, but that was the gist of it, was handing over and asking for support, asking for help. And we did this little ritual, and almost I immediately felt a relief. I felt my shoulders sagging. I felt the weight being lifted off them, the responsibility for finding Christian that I'd taken on myself. I'd taken on all that responsibility. I'd taken on all the burden, and I hadn't given any responsibility over to anybody else. I hadn't delegated anything to anybody else. It was ridiculous. But I felt at that time that that's what I needed to do, and I obviously had to do that to reach my like rock bottom, because unless you reach rock bottom, I don't think I would have. You just reach rock bottom, and you have to ask for help. You have to surrender to it. There's nothing else you can do. You've tried everything. You can't do it on your own, and you're not supposed to be doing anything on your own. But anyway, I think I digress a little bit there, but after doing this little ritual with my son, we cleared everything away, and yeah, I literally felt like human again, and I felt like I was myself again. It was that quick, really. It was just like I've handed responsibility over for finding Christian to something much greater than me, who has the power. Okay, now I'm going to just talk about, I've talked before about signals. I'm being shown this heat in my back, which I'm sure I've talked about before on the podcasts. Now, this heat that I was feeling in my back, it was like somebody was standing behind me and just had their hand just pressed in the sort of middle of my back. And I kept feeling it, and I still feel it now. I feel it a lot. And this week, I have had it explained to me. Didn't ask the question to have it explained, but something somebody who I'm working with at the moment, they just started to explain the heat that was in my back. And they were explaining that when you're giving out love from your heart, energetically, you give out love and it comes out of the front of your heart, so out of the front of your chest. When you're receiving love, it comes in through the back of your heart, through the middle back. And I was like, oh my goodness, that was me receiving love. It's going to make me cry now. Because I always thought of it as like just somebody standing behind giving support, like unseen support. But it's actually more than that. It's love. And like unconditional love is the most powerful. Oh my God, I'm really tearing up. Is the most powerful force, energy in the world. Hands down, without a doubt. That unconditional love that I was being given and being shown, and I was receiving through the middle of my back, that was the first time that I actually started to properly receive unconditional love. I knew it was a sign. I knew enough at that point that this heat that I could feel in my back was a sign from Spirit. And that was when I first decided that Christians, we were going to have a party for Christian for his 40th birthday. So this was, it was actually 13 years after he'd gone missing. And we had this party, which I've talked about in previous podcasts. But at that moment, when we were all standing around, we had all family and friends for Christian's party. We were all standing around in a circle, holding hands. We were all listening to Lenny Kravitz, Let Love Rule. And I felt this warmth in my back again. And again, that was a ritual ceremony that that had come to me in a sort of vision. So this was very much part of the plan. And us all standing round in a circle, we were all wishing, I was sort of did a little introduction, and I was saying, look, we all need to draw Christian in. We need to send him all our love and draw him in with our love. And that point, while we were standing in that circle, like, I opened the channel for that unconditional love to come in. And it was so simple. It really was. So I'm talking about all these rituals and things, but they are so simple, and they can just be like lighting a candle. They can just be, it's just asking for help, and also allowing the love to go out through the front of your heart. Unconditional love. We'll talk about that in a minute. Unconditional love out, and then actually receiving that unconditional love back into you. The receiving of love. So when we talk about receiving, so we were all in this circle. It literally was like a light switch moment where the love could come in and go out freely. So apart from love, which is the most powerful energy in the world, can move mountains, it can make the impossible possible. But what else can you receive apart from love? You can receive guidance. We've talked about this before. There's a whole team of unseen energies, frequencies, spirits that are around, and they are just waiting to be asked for help. It's almost like very, very ethical. They won't give you help and like start pushing things and tapping things and nudging things into your path unless you ask for help. It's so important to ask for help. You can also receive strength. You can, I actually did some writing with Christian today, actually, and there was part of it was about receiving strength. Actually, if you've got nobody around that you can kind of lean on at the time, or you haven't got someone like myself by your side to help you navigate things, and you're not sort of speaking with spirits or with your guides, you can actually just ground yourself into earth and actually receive. So you have to it's like a visualization, really. It's planting your feet really firmly on the earth and actually allowing the strength from the earth, like the earth's heartbeat. Wherever you are in the world, you will always hear the same heartbeat of the earth. That's how I've had it described to me before. So like wherever you are, it's like seeing the moon in the sky. Wherever you are in the world, we all see the same moon. We might see different sides of it, what have you, but we all see the same moon. And that was a really comforting thought actually for me when I thought Christian was still alive and in Africa, and that we at some point were still watching the same moon and having that connection between us through that third party. But anyway, this strength, you can kind of borrow strength from the earth, from the heartbeat of the earth. Just draw it up into your body and get strength from the earth when you need it, and and there's nothing else kind of to hand. So that's a really useful just bit of guidance, really. The other thing that you can receive is information and truths. Now, obviously, when we were searching for Christian, the one truth we didn't want to hear was that he was dead initially, actually. and I guess all the way through. But when you have somebody who goes missing and they've been missing for so long, you have to, well, certainly in my case, there was an element of having to get on with life, and for me, that was almost like acceptance that Christian was dead. So this is from about year 3 of him going missing up to about up to 2015, so year 13. So all that time, so that I could literally focus and get on with life, and what's the word? It just came to me. You know, I had to think of him as dead, so that I could get on with life. So, you know, have my family, get my career writing up and running, and progress that way, because you don't have closure when you have a missing person, and that's like the hardest part of all this is the not knowing and being in limbo. Whereas certainly for myself, I had to find some sort of closure, and that was thinking that Christian was dead, and hoping, kind of that little flicker of hoping that, you know, maybe one day, but it almost put a lid on my grief so that I didn't have to face it, and I didn't have to face the reality. It was almost like, now I'm thinking about it, it was almost like a story I could tell that just sort of closed the lid. And that I used to think, you know, that it was easiest to think that he'd been, you know, eaten or killed by hippo or something, and you know, certainly not by another person. You know, that's stuff of nightmares, but that was just how I sort of kept it in a box, and never went near my grief. But as time went on, I started to open to the truths, and I was ready. You know, I was ready to start hearing the truths. I was, you're never going to be given truths unless you're ready to hear them. And you might think when you receive them, there's shock. There might be chaos around what you've just heard, but actually in the long term, you were ready to hear it. And you're like, I'm hearing it. You're never given what you can't handle. You're never given what you can't handle, and you're never given what you're not ready to receive. Okay, so that's information and truths. I'll go back to some of this, but the other thing that's really important to receive, really important, are your emotions and feelings. Now, without feeling, you're not going to heal. It's like feeling equals healing. When I started to really feel, in fact, that was, you know, when I was taught what I began with, this feeling of like complete despair, completely distraught, I've like given up, I can't do any more. That was when I was really feeling. I hadn't really felt, I mean, I was, yeah, it's again this limbo of having a missing person. It's like this ambiguous loss, and it's like a chronic grief disorder. That's what I had. But it was essentially because I wasn't allowing my emotions out and my feelings to rise up. I'd get waves of you know, like sadness and grief, but I don't want to hear that, you know, I don't want to hear it. Just keep it down. And my emotions were very stagnant. The energy in my body was very stagnant. I was in trauma, I was in shock, and I never allowed anything to really come up to be released. So a lot about, you think about receiving, and you automatically think about receiving something from somebody else. Like there's always another party in receiving, but actually you can receive from yourself. It's like receiving your emotions and actually facing them and acknowledging them, not doing anything with them, acknowledging them, maybe writing however you feel, however you express yourself, creating something with those feelings and just allowing them to release. Something else that you can receive is forgiveness and understanding. Now I'm being shown something I was listening to a couple of days ago as well, was about estrangement. So we don't necessarily, obviously our program here is focused on grief with somebody who's passed over, but actually we can experience grief through an estrangement. So many siblings fall out. I hear that all the time. I've got so many siblings fall out, so many families fall apart, and I'm just being shown now that you can receive forgiveness and give forgiveness wherever you are in the world. We were talking about the moon and the earth. That's the same, the energy between two people, it is always there. There's always a connection. Once you've loved, you will always have that connection, even if it's clouded by gunk. That connection is still there, and you can use that connection, and you can, with your thoughts, with your feelings, you can give out love, you can give out forgiveness, you can give out understanding, and you can also receive love, receive forgiveness, receive understanding. You don't even need to speak to the person. You can just do it energetically. Yeah, that's what I need to say on that for the moment. And it's all very well, this giving, which I've just mentioned, but it's the actual receiving. Now, obviously, if we're talking about truths and things like that, things that we don't want to receive, we might feel we are not worthy of receiving love. We might feel we're not worthy of receiving respect. We might feel we're not worthy of receiving forgiveness for something. We might feel we're not strong enough to receive our emotions. We might feel that, what's the point of somebody else giving me guidance? I'm not going to be able to do anything with this guidance. There's all these blocks to receiving. We might have been betrayed. So we've given in the past, but not received back. All these things which stop us receiving, these are going to have come from things that have happened in childhood. These are going to be things that have come from past lives that we might have had, where we've we've had some betrayal, or we've had things, mistrust, things like that. And I'm being shown it's like that was part of my, between Christian and I, we had a lot of gunk, which I've talked about before. I think there was a lot of mistrust in our relationship because of totally unjustified really, but because of him leaving to a different school and going to full boarding and things, it really did, there was from my side, there was a real mistrust. Our connection had been sort of, I really questioned my, like, everything. It really went so deep that my trust in everything, not just Christian, but just life, I guess, was put into, like, everything was shaken up. And accepting and, you know, giving and receiving love between us were just full of this gunk, and that's conditional love. So there was we had to, Christian and I, we had to move from this place of sort of conditional love into a space of unconditional love. So it didn't matter in the end for me that Christian wasn't coming forward. It didn't matter to me that he wasn't showing me the love back. All I had to do, all my job was, and the only way I could make that connection with him again was by giving out unconditional love. So you can be giving out conditional love, like I'm gonna love you as long as you do this for me. I'm gonna love you you know, for this period of time. You know, there's always some sort of but or if you do this or something like that. So there's always a condition to the love that you're giving. To be in a position, yeah, where Christian and I literally were aligned and ready to hear the truth and to receive love and give each other love clearly, yeah, we had to be in that space of just pure love, that it didn't matter, you know, if he would ever come back. I was just giving him that love, and that's when everything aligned, and we found out that he was dead, but our relationship was so clear by then. And this is really important, that the timing of that, receiving that love and receiving the truth, receiving the forgiveness, receiving the understanding, like it was the right time. We've talked about it being the right time for giving and receiving and of truths and things like that, but really the whole process of a healing and a transformation journey is you receive at the right time for you and for the stage in the journey where you're on. So if we're talking about so you can also be receiving and remembering. I'm going to use the word remembering for this bit, because you remember how strong you are. You remember how magnificent you are. This is everybody. Okay, this is everybody listening. You are magnificent. I'm hearing this. Like, you're magnificent. You're strong. You have all these talents. You have all these abilities. You have power. Like, power isn't a macho thing. Power is like we can receive strength, power from the earth, but we have it all inside us. We just need to, I guess it's like the feelings, like we need to receive that strength, that inner strength that we have. We know, again, this is receiving. We know we have this inner knowing, and it's opening up to that, and it's allowing that inner knowing and the truths and our gifts and our talents to just be ignited, really, and to come to the surface. Why might we not receive? That's just come in. Why might we not? So we've talked about, you know, the feelings of not being worthy of receiving. I'm hearing like that's nonsense. We're all worthy of love. We're all worthy of receiving support, guidance, joy, freedom, understanding, forgiveness. We're all worthy of that. I sometimes hear people who approach me to work with them. They sometimes are wary of receiving information, particularly, and truths from spirit, from the unseen, because what could it mean for them? You know, when you get truths and things coming in, it means that something's going to change in your life. Essentially, it means you've been given a sign, you've been given a piece of information, and that's quite a responsibility. It's a big responsibility. In specific, I'm thinking more of people who come to me and they might want some information for themselves and to like put their own mind at rest about something so that they can, you know, find completion or move on. But then what do they do with that information? Because it can reflect or ripple out onto family, friends, other situations, and it's like that receiving can open like a Pandora's box of surprises. And but again, all I can say to them and to you if you're listening is that whatever you're going to receive, you will receive what you need. You will receive at a level that you can cope with, a level that you know what to do with it. Yeah. So don't worry about receiving. How do you receive? I talked about before about walking into a clearing in a forest, and it's that I'm hearing. I always hear it's that simple. We make everything so complicated and difficult and think we need you know, all this paraphernalia around us to start receiving messages and guidance and information and all of that, when we don't at all. We just need to sit quietly. We need to be willing to receive. So it's literally like you've got a radio antenna in your body, and you just have to be willing to turn the switch on. That's essentially it. You have to be willing to sit and listen and to practice, to prayer, like give your prayers out, but then also be willing to hear back, to listen back. You might so I'm really talking about sort of meditation and prayer or walking meditations in nature. You could also what was I just getting then? Something else I got, sorry. It was also about having I couldn't grab that. Anyway, sorry, that went too quickly, Christian. It was too quick. But having that space and actually just receiving, allowing the receiving to come in. It's like a muscle in that you might hear a little, sorry, that was it. Thank you. You might not hear anything or be in quiet, but you might get a sign. Like this morning, I went outside the house and there was a duck sitting on the roof. Now, we're used to birds and what have you around sitting on the roof, but this was a duck. And I was like, okay. So I came in and had a look at one of the books, which is all full of, you know, animal guides and what they mean. And if you see certain animals in unusual places, or you see animals repeatedly during the day, and duck was actually emotional comfort and protection. And actually now I've kind of done the show, I can see how the duck could have been useful for me and for maybe for you, the audience this evening. That sort of emotional comfort of hearing that maybe other people are in the same situation as you or similar situations to you, that there is this support that's there, and receiving. So instead of just meditation and quietness, if that is just something that you can't do, or you can't, it just doesn't work for you, look out for signs, look out for conversations that you hear, listen out for things that catch your attention on the radio. These are all little signs that are being given to you, little bits of information, so that you know you're on the right track. Okay, these are all things that you can receive. You can receive things from your dreams. receive from your intuition, receive from your heart. Like if you've got to make a decision and you're sort of, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do, I don't know if between two choices, maybe just listen to your heart, just go quiet and ask that question of your heart. Okay, don't ask it of your head because your head will be, they'll be they're literally listening to your head, and the chatter in your head just sets up a battlefield almost. If you've got to make a decision, just let all that conflict go that's in your head. And this is mental health. It's like, let it all go, and just drop into your heart, and your heart will tell you. Your heart is pure. It's the purest advice, purest guidance, the purest love that you will ever receive. And that's all within you. Okay, you are, I always get this, you're the knight in shining armor, that you're always hoping somebody else will be that coming towards you over the horizon. Forget that. You are your knight in shining armor. You are your hero. Okay, so receiving from yourself is so important. You can ask for help from outside, your guides, the universe, whatever. I mean, the universe is all inside you, but that's another thing. But like, receive from yourself, trust yourself. We've had podcasts, episodes all about trusting yourself, but this one's very much that. And I just need to kind of finish up here, because I know this is a pep talk for me as well in terms of receiving. Like, receive everything that you get. We've got a school lottery, and I put money in each month to the school lottery. And this is how mundane things can be. But I won the lottery today. £20. So it's not big winnings. But part of when I went to claim the winnings, it said, do you want to donate it back to the school, or do you want to claim the winnings? Now, I'd seen in previous weeks that people had donated it back to the school. But I thought, well, what's the point of entering a lottery, winning the lottery, even if it's £20, and then not actually receiving it? And anyway, today I did win the lottery, and I chose to receive the money. Now, that is because I don't want things coming towards me that I'm going to be receiving over the next few weeks that came in. I don't want to go, oh, do you know what? Actually, no, I don't think I want to receive that. I feel I should give it back to the school, or I should give it to. No, I am going to receive what is coming towards me. And by making that intention of, I am going to receive everything that's going to come towards me, it opens up for the larger things to come towards you. And if you are putting out to the universe that I really want this, all these desires that you're putting out, okay, if you're not going to suddenly get the big desire, you're not suddenly going to get I'm going to find Christians straight away. No, that's not going to happen. You're not going to suddenly win £1 million. You're not suddenly going to land your dream clients. You're not going to, like, little steps, and all the way you're going to be receiving. Okay, you're going to be given little things, receive the little things, receive those, and they will get bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, that seems to be very important. That was a sort of pep talk for me. And I also I've just finished reading this book. It's Graham Norton, Home Stretch. And I knew how far I had come. Because usually if I read about long lost people being found and coming back into like the bosom of their family, if I'd read that, even not recently, but for about 17 years, I'd have been in floods of tears reading this book when that happened. But I read it a few days ago, and I was like, oh, that's so wonderful. I was so happy, and I could feel their joy about this son who'd returned from living in he was gay, and he'd lived away from his family for like 17 years because he thought wrongly that they wouldn't accept his gayness, and he kind of made a decision to leave home and not to return. But actually, in the end, he did return through his sister, actually, who made the welcome possible. But anyway, it got to that point where I can now read these stories and not be moved to tears and longing and oh God, I wish that could happen to us. So yeah, I think that is kind of all that I need to say, but I hope you've got something out of that. There was a lot of information in there, but just trusting yourself and really going for your desires. Like, don't ever think that anything's impossible. Don't ever think anything's impossible. Like, if you've got that, if you're giving that unconditional love out and receiving that unconditional love, anything is possible. Seriously. And I have to just, I can only tell you that. It's really up to you to experience, to set these things in action. Just tiny steps. Open your heart. Just open it a little bit at first. Like, and if you get overwhelmed, you can just close it down for a bit. You know, you don't need to walk around open to receiving all the time, especially if you're in crowded places or, you know, things like that. Just let in what you feel you can let in, but do be open to receiving. You can't give all the time. You'll just exhaust yourself, which is what I did. So take a step back and just receive, whether that's love and comfort shown by the duck on the roof today, but just know that you're always looked after, but you have to be open to, you have to ask and be open to receiving. Okay. I think it's going to be me again next week, and then I've got a beautiful guest for you to meet from Canada. But yeah, lots of love, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful week, and yeah, just get ready for that flowering time. Open up and receive all the love that is there waiting for you. Okay, lots of love from me, and I'll see you.
Thank you for listening to The Finder of Lost Things. I think we've been triggered so long and so hard by COVID, and it's going to carry on. People are getting used to stillness, and they're getting used to more solitude, but how do you use that time for the highest good? This process that we're going to explore will bring back the joy and purpose to life. That wholeness, you know, that sort of harmony and flow and togetherness. People are really ready to find their lost parts now. You can find me at hannahvelton.online.
Views expressed on this program are those of the host, guests, and callers, and do not necessarily reflect the views of the station, its management, or advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.